It's time for Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt. Todd Marquardt, attorney at law in Texas. If you're a millionaire or a thousandaire, Talk Law Radio is now on the air. Call in with your business law question, your elder law question, veteran aid, Medicaid, build a business to get paid. 210-308-8867. Or ask a question online at marquardtlawfirm.com. That's MARQUARDT lawfirm.com. And now it's Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. Today we're going to be talking about the hidden legal issue blind spots of older persons and their families. Many of you know that I'm an attorney in San Antonio, Texas, and some of you know that my law firm focuses on business, elder law, estate planning, probate, and guardianship, including trust administration. One of the logos that we use shows a Venn diagram of how each of those practice areas are related to one another. I'd like to give you some nuggets of information that you might have forgotten or that you might not have learned yet, or maybe I haven't emphasized yet. So now it's time to discover your legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. I'm on the radio live Saturday mornings on 9:30 a.m. The Answer and 6:30 a.m. The Word, and on 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon on Sundays on 9:30 a.m. The Answer. That's 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon. But you can also join me on podcasts everywhere, Facebook Live, YouTube, and talklawradio.com. You can search our archived episodes to learn about other areas of the law. I also frequently talk about constitutional law, like First Amendment law and Second Amendment law, among the other amendments. Now it's time for legal analysis about how these four circles, these four practice areas of law, are related. I was recently in a conference for elder law attorneys in Dallas. I'm a member of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, and we have a Texas chapter where we meet twice a year, and I was just up there in Dallas for a conference. It's a very collaborative group, and so we have a program where we just meet and talk about all the issues that each one of us runs into, and we try and talk about new things every year. Last year, I talked a lot about Medicaid and nursing home and long-term care planning, and this year there were some additional questions that brought up business law, estate planning, probate, guardianship, and trust administration, and so I'd like to share some of that with you. One thing that makes elder law attorneys unique, at least here in Texas, is that we're a very collaborative group. We like to share experiences that we've had, and so I can bring back my own experiences and also experiences from other attorneys to benefit my clients where I can get some insight. So this National Academy of Elder Law Attorney membership is comprised of attorneys in private and public sectors, as well as judges, professors, and law students. So it's a forum where we get continuing legal education, conferences, networking events, and newsletters on a broad range of topics. Before we get started talking about the details of that law, let's begin with prayer. Dear God, thank you for this day and for all the blessings and gifts that you give to us. Please forgive me for my sins, for my mistakes, for doing the wrong thing or failing to follow your will. Please help me give good information to the listeners about hidden legal issue blind spots of legal issues of older people and their families today. Help us to use the gifts and talents that you have provided for the good of your people, for our own good, and for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. The hidden legal issue blind spots today are organized by area of law. And like I said before, I focus on business, estate, elder law, and probate, trust, and guardianship administration. So those are 4 broad topics. They all interrelate, and I'll try and explain how as we go, in addition to giving you some specific insight about each area. It's funny how elder law attorneys might run across a business law issue. But think about it. Business owners are prone to getting older, right? Like we all are. What goes up but never comes down? Your age. And so business owners are going to be older, and they're going to have the same issues with estate planning, elder law, long-term care, and eventually probate, guardianship, or trust administration. Well, one of the things that might help a business owner in their long-term care planning, or as they pay for their long-term care, either at home or in assisted living or in a nursing home or memory care community, if they had been a business owner and the business is still actively running, the way that business is treated and the way the business income is treated differently than Social Security income or pension income that you might receive in your retirement when you're applying for Medicaid to pay for nursing home care. Now, it doesn't happen very often that there would be an ongoing business when the business owner needs nursing home care or memory care, but occasionally it does come up. So if you run across that situation, of course, you probably need to talk to an attorney. And here's a good time for me to give my disclaimer that don't take this information as advice for your specific legal situation. Just trying to give you general information. The State Bar of Texas does govern my law license, and the State Bar does want attorneys to inform the public about the law, but we can't give general information over the air or on a podcast or on a YouTube video. You should contact an attorney to give you specific advice about your unique facts and circumstances. Okay? Sounds good. Another thing that comes up with business owners is estate planning or succession planning. Who is going to be running this business after I'm gone? And business owners are going to have to ask that question, or if, God forbid, tragedy strikes and they pass away unexpectedly, their family is going to have to answer this question. And so you might be looking for an operating agreement or bylaws or a buy-sell agreement to know what to do. You might also need a probate estate planning attorney to navigate whether this business interest was owned by a trust or whether it's going to be disposed of by a will through a probate process. I mentioned long-term care planning and how business owners are prone to getting older. Well, part of the estate planning process, the goal is to make an orderly transfer of assets and wealth. Sure, you can make a disorderly transfer of assets and wealth, but why would you want to put your family through the anguish and heartache and stress of doing that? Let's talk a little bit more specifically about estate planning. All of us have an estate, even if the estate consists of my cowboy hat and my favorite pair of boots. A lot of people think an estate is a $1 million mansion or stock trust funds and all that, but an estate is simply defined as what you own at the time of your death. And so estate planning can be simple for somebody that has just a little bit, or it can be more complex if somebody needs to pay federal estate taxes. But everybody should at least have a conversation and not just guess or assume what's going to happen? Well, there's a unique circumstance where somebody has an IRA or a 401k. How are we going to arrange for the orderly transfer of assets and wealth for an IRA or 401k? One thing that's available, is that a trust can be an eligible designated beneficiary if it's identifiable. And so that's sort of unique. That's a fact and circumstance that you definitely need to talk to an attorney or a financial advisor about. Another thing that you might want to be aware of is if you do want your children or your beneficiaries to receive their share in a trust because you're worried about protecting their inheritance from divorce, disability, frivolous lawsuits, economic downturns, or a disaster, you might want them to receive their inheritance in a trust. Well, there's a provision in the tax code that might make taxation of the trust income a little less onerous. And so you might want to ask your estate planning attorney about that when setting up the inheritance trust for your beneficiaries. It's a way of allowing the beneficiary to be treated as the grantor, even if they are not the grantor for tax purposes, to avoid trust-level taxes, but to keep the asset protection. Another unique circumstances for estate planning and IRAs is that you could use the IRA to fund a charitable remainder trust. And in this way, you could benefit both your beneficiaries and the charity of your choosing. The number one issue or problem that I have in helping people with this is finding somebody that has a charitable intent, somebody who wants to benefit charity. I don't know, I guess I just grew up that way with my grandparents and parents teaching me that I should put a little bit of money in the plate at church, and going to galas and helping out other nonprofits that focus on specific issues outside of the church. If you have a charitable intent, you might want to let your estate planning attorney know about that, because you have some options available to you that people without charitable intent do not have. Let's talk a little bit about disabled beneficiaries. Have you ever heard of a supplemental needs trust or a special needs trust? Have you ever heard about the ABLE account? Well, there's a way for both of them to work together. For years or decades even, estate planning attorneys have been using supplemental needs trusts to leave an inheritance for a beneficiary without causing that same disabled beneficiary to be disqualified from their government benefits like SSI or Medicaid. And so you definitely want to have an attorney to set one of those up. Something new that has come about within the last 10 years is the ABLE account. It's kind of like a 529 plan, that you would use for education for children that don't have supplemental needs or special needs, that just have general educational needs. It's in the same area of the tax code, and so a lot of the rules are the same. You can invest in one of these ABLE accounts up to a certain amount, depending on when the beneficiary was disabled, and you can allow those investments to grow tax-free, and then make those withdrawals at appropriate times. So there's a lot of rules that you have to follow in order to get those tax advantages from the ABLE account. One thing people might not know is that if the plan is designed correctly, the supplemental needs trust could make a distribution to the ABLE account. Again, you want to check with your own estate planning attorney or financial advisor. By the way, I wanted to mention that Talk Law Radio is sponsored by Marquardt Law Firm. Marquardt Law Firm focuses on last wills, living trusts, and tax-protected inheritance plans, new businesses and old businesses which might have issues with corporations, contracts, LLCs, family limited partnerships, and we can represent those who are facing problems from lack of planning, like in district court, county court, or probate court. So check out marquardtlawfirm.com, read the blogs there, or watch the YouTube videos for more information. And you can chat online and ask for the long-term care deficiencies checklist that's related to elder law. So chat online at marquardtlawfirm.com and type in the little box, "May I have a copy of the long-term care deficiencies checklist?" and we'll make sure that you get one. Okay, now for issues that are specially directed to the elder law circle of the Venn diagram are, number one, Medicaid estate recovery. Many of you know, just by hearing from your friends, neighbors, and family, or through the grapevine, we used to say in school, that there's this thing called Medicaid estate recovery, MERP. Some attorneys like to say MERP. I don't like to say made-up words that the public doesn't understand, so it just takes me longer to talk about it because I'm always saying Medicaid estate recovery program. But this program that wants to get reimbursed from your estate after the Medicaid applicant passes away has very specific rules that it must abide by. So the government, just like you and me, has to follow the regulations. And if you fail to plan for Medicaid estate recovery and you end up trying to uncover what you're supposed to do after your loved one passed away, that is now subject to Medicaid estate recovery, call an attorney, because there are some ways of forcing the government to abide by its own regulations. And maybe you'll get to keep the property instead of selling it and turning over the assets to the state of Texas. In addition to those regulations that have to be filed, there's other strategies that you might be able to avail yourself of in probate court. Of course, you have to have an attorney for that. Here's something that I have realized over the years is that there are some elder law attorneys that don't like probate, and there are some probate attorneys that don't know anything about Medicaid estate recovery program. So it just so happens that yours truly knows both because they fit in each one of those circles. So that's how the Venn diagram overlaps between elder law and probate law. Anyway, that's something you should look for. Of course, there's exceptions to the Medicaid estate recovery rules that we notify the program of from time to time to help people keep the assets that they work so hard for and without being reclaimed by the state of Texas. Another thing that elder law attorneys like to talk about is how to deal with Texas Health and Human Services Commission. This is the state agency that processes Medicaid applications and that governs the Medicaid programs. And so when we file a Medicaid application, we're dealing with Health and Human Services Commission. And this is a bureaucracy just like any that you might have had to deal with from the Department of Motor Vehicles or the Secretary of State or any other that you might have dealt with. There are ways that they do things that cause confusion among the public. And we as elder law attorneys just have experience in dealing with them. And so we kind of know what their process is, how they will process an application, and what are the pitfalls that might cause an application to be denied, even though there's no real problem. There might just be a a T that wasn't crossed or an I that wasn't dotted, so to speak. I mean, it's never that simple, but you know what I mean. So we like to talk amongst ourselves about what patterns do you see and when you're filing your Medicaid application and so forth. And it's really interesting that for the past couple of years, one attorney or another has been asking about how do I prove that I sent a fax? Isn't that interesting? How do I prove that I sent a fax? And you're probably thinking, well, if you send a fax, you get a fax confirmation. Well, a couple of attorneys ran into this issue where Health and Human Services had said they didn't get a fax, and the fax confirmation does not mean that they actually got the fax. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? So there was an actual court case about this that we can reference and say, in this appeal, the court held that a fax confirmation is confirmation that the fax was sent. I don't make this up. This is the truth is stranger than fiction. Another thing is just trying to make sure that the application actually does get processed. There have been a time or two that even one of my applications had to go to an appeal hearing because the case was never actually processed. And so the law, the regulation says that a Medicaid application must be processed within 45 days. Well, what happens if it takes longer than 45 days? Well, number one, you wait longer. Number two, you try and be the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. And number three, sometimes we have to file an appeal just to have somebody else to complain to make sure that that application actually gets processed. Okay, let's move on to probate. Now, what two things have to happen in order for a last will and testament to be useful? Number one, somebody has to die. Number two, the judge has to affirm that the will is valid. So you find yourself in probate court and you prove those two things. Well, that's not the end of the day. Some things happen where a beneficiary thinks they should have gotten more, or they think that the person that wrote the will didn't have the capacity to understand the will, or they think that somebody else had undue influence over them in getting them to sign the will. Well, those are things are hard to prove, and so in one of these probate courses, we talked about all the issues that happen when you're contesting a will. You have to have an attorney for this. You can't represent yourself pro bono because there's too many landmines for you to step on. And so you just want to find somebody that thinks you have a good case and that you can afford, because it's going to be expensive to pay legal fees. You can't just go in front of the judge and tell your story. Everything has to be presented in a trial using courtroom evidence and testimony, and all of that has to be done in a specific manner according to the Civil Practice and Remedies Code and the rules of evidence. Well, I'm coming short on time, and so I do want to mention before I go that if you like this show, if you like learning about new things and you like learning about the law, check out our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and search in the search bar for Talk Law Radio and look for the Lady Justice with the Scales of Justice and the red, white, and blue logo. You know you found Talk Law Radio, and hit subscribe. And you can hear all my shows. You can watch while you're walking the dog, or while you're doing the dishes, or while you're making dinner. Okay, another thing I wanted to let you know about is sometimes we talk about the Constitution, and it's my mission to help remind people that We have rights under the Constitution, but you have to know about your rights and you have to enforce your rights, or someday they're just going to evaporate. Hope you enjoyed the show today. I'm Todd Marquardt. This is Talk Law Radio. You can find me on the radio, on podcasts everywhere, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, or on talklawradio.com. So make sure you tell your friends to search, find, listen, watch, and share. Thanks. I'm Todd Marquardt. I'll talk to you later.